Destiny 2's player count is now below the Curse of Osiris era. Paul Tassi from Forbes is weighing in his opinions on the most recent data we've received from Popularity Report. But are we doom posting? Is there more to this story? We're going to dive into it all today. And just as a quick disclaimer, you're more than welcome to have a difference of opinion. Statistical analysis can be very complicated. And while I may have a PhD in video game armchair development, I'm not an absolute expert on statistics. So my conclusion when I saw that the Curse of Osiris numbers were 350 something thousand and Edge of Fate was less than 300,000 was less players equal bad. But let's see what Paul Tassi has to say here. Oof, this is a bad one. All right, we're already off to a good start. While we only really ever have access to Steam data for most games, including Destiny 2, that's changed with Popularity Report, which is true. So far, we've been reviewing and analyzing the data for the population of Destiny 2 using the Steam charts, but it only goes back to October 2019, which is around the launch of Shadowkeep, until modern day, obviously, Edge of Fate. But now with Popularity Report, we can go all the way back to the launch of Destiny 2 in 2017, which is really cool and brings us a ton of interesting information. So again, a huge shout out to Popularity Report for putting all this together. Now we have a granular look at the entire scope of Destiny, including the full history of the game and the console population as well, or at least some approximation of it, as it certainly aligns with the past data we have had. And this is true if you look at something like warmind.io and Charlemagne bot. You can add this to your Discord here and you can type in /population analytics. And it says that right now, or at least a day ago, it was 300 something thousand players, which pretty closely lines up to what Popularity Report has. And if you take that information and sort of like triangulate it with the Steam charts, you can piece together a real picture of, what is the Destiny 2 population doing? Is it growing? Is it declining? We got a much better picture thanks to Popularity Report. What seems to be happening is that the situation with Destiny 2 is as dire as it's ever been since the launch in 2017. I mean, this is just objectively true in terms of player population. Like, regardless of Bungie's finances or anything like that, like, if we're just talking like, are more people playing Destiny 2 now than ever before? The answer is no. Less people are playing Destiny 2 now than ever before. In the entire history of Destiny 2's launch, we have fewer people playing, which could be indicative of a lot of different things. You could say, hey, the game's dying, or maybe the game's just going through some growing pains as we're adapting to a smaller dev team at Bungie. You could try to spin it in a variety of different ways, but at the very least, you do have to agree that the population is lower than it's ever been. This is just an objective fact here. What the data shows is that the current daily online players for Destiny post-Edge of Fate, post-Ash and Iron, is now well below the player population of even the infamous post-Curse of Osiris era, which absolutely hurts. If you've been around playing Destiny for a while, you know that people look back to the Curse of Osiris days as like the Dark Ages. Like, we don't even talk about that time, right? You'll hear references if you didn't play to 2 tokens and a blue, and we're not going to go into the lore of 2 tokens and a blue, but let's just say it was bad. All right, if you're mad at Bungie now, you should have seen how mad everyone was during 2 tokens and a blue. And so for Edge of Fate and its player sentiment and population to beckon on the days of old during the dark ages of Destiny 2 is alarming, to say the least. A poor expansion followed by a total player drop-off before the game had seasons to keep players entertained between releases. This is, again, before Bungie incorporated the live service model into Destiny 2. Basically, they were a box product, and the game was meant to, launch, have a ton of players, and it was meant to have a steep decline afterwards. Because what would happen is, as soon as that steep decline got low, they would launch a new thing, right? Like, there would be like an annual release. Like, Call of Duty did this for a very long time. I was a big COD player back in the day. Every year there'd be a new COD game, and they were just churning these things out year after year after year. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Call of Duty World at War, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Call of Duty Black Ops, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. That was the cycle that Bungie was looking for with Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. But because the population got so low and so bad, they decided to pivot during this period of time and transition into a live service model. And you can see that the results were incredible, right? Forsaken, incredible player population, and they actually keep their player population much better throughout this year. You'll notice that the low points of Forsaken are not nearly as low as Curse of Osiris. And that's because the live service model is now integrated into the game. You've got season passes and multiple updates going live, lots of new things coming into the game to spike the population and spike Destiny 2 player interest. And then, just as it gets really low, boom, Shadowkeep launches. And again, it's a part of this live service model that Bungie has basically pioneered at this point. And they're able to keep the player population significantly higher than they did even during the low points of Forsaken. So the graph is trending upwards in some ways. I mean, technically, the peak of Shadowkeep was less than that of Forsaken, but the average player population was better. So Shadowkeep was a W. And then in Beyond Light, things got even crazier. I mean, technically, they launched Sunsetting, which was arguably the worst decision Bungie ever made. But even if we put Sunsetting aside for a moment and just look at the population, this is absolutely beautiful, right? You've just got peak and valley, but it always stays at a pretty high point. I mean, even the valley right here is at like 800,000. And Bungie, when they did incorporate Sunsetting, they like changed the whole Tiger engine, I believe, and updates started coming out really fast. I did a video titled, "Who is this new Bungie?" right around here at the launch of Beyond Light, because when things were broken in the raid, they were just like immediately fixing them. Previously, before this, something would be broken in the raid and it would stay there. I'm not joking, for like 2 months, if not longer at times. But then suddenly in Beyond Light, it was like they had updated the engine and they were fixing things super fast. It was incredible. It was crazy to see, especially after all the years you had played Destiny, and Bungie felt like they were like maybe lazy, but it was probably just their own engine getting in their way. Beyond Light really helped with the pace of things. And that seasonal model carried us for a very long time. Back then in the spring of 2018, though, the low was somewhere around 350,000 daily players. Now, after a recent total crash, after Ash and Iron, daily players are around 300,000 or less. So when you look at population report, basically saying that right here at the low point, you've got 355,000 players at Curse of Osiris. And then you fast forward through all the years and you look at Edge of Fate and you're like, oh my gosh, it says 257,000 right now, which is awful. What the heck? And when you scroll back even just a few days in this, you can see we're at the 300,000 range. We dipped below 300,000 for a period of time, right? We're kind of like in a Curse of Osiris era, at least in regards to how many people are online in Destiny 2. Does that mean that Destiny 2 is absolutely dead? No. But if this trend were to continue, it would obviously be very problematic. We can't predict the future though. But given where we're at with like the Steam reviews right now being like 3% positive, it's not looking very good right now. Like the next 2 months are probably not going to be sunshine and rainbows for Bungie and Destiny 2. Let's be real, right? That's bad, but it's also worth flashing back to a previous era when Bungie was talking about how alarming the post Curse of Osiris drop-off was via a presentation about the game. So now we're going back to that GDC conference, which is this right here, when Justin Truman talked about velocity being more important than position. He talked about over-delivery. All of these things were perceived as being pretty controversial, but really he was just trying to give a behind-the-curtains look for developers to understand how Bungie transitioned from box products to live service. I think that Justin is a little bit misinterpreted here throughout this, but even if he's misinterpreted, the PR and the optics of this are obviously pretty bad. I mean, this video had 500 likes to 2,000 dislikes. So, all the gamers that saw this were like, no, we're not a fan of this, Bungie. And this definitely does not help Bungie's PR or public image. In that presentation, he said to show this visually, this was our weekly active users for Destiny 2 in the first few months. And for comparison, this is what Destiny 1 looked like. So far, so good. So you can see here, you got the gray line, which is Destiny 1, and you got the orange line, which is Destiny 2. Which I absolutely love this because this means that Bungie themselves look at these data graphs. And even though I might be a Titan main that occasionally eats a crayon, Bungie said, gray line go up, gray line go down, gray line go back up, gray line go back down. This okay. Then they said, orange line go up, orange line go down, orange line go up, back down. But it keep going back down and keep going back down and keep going back down. This bad, which I would interpret to a certain degree. I mean, again, I'm no statistical analysis here by any means, but I would interpret, population line very tall here, population line very low here, bad. Population line start very low here, keep going low, also bad. Justin Truman goes on to say, but then this started happening. And this moment right here in February of 2018 was effing terrifying. So he's talking about this red arrow right here where things were going up and down, right? It fluctuates quite a bit. They pump out some new marketing. Hey, try out Destiny 2. They get new players. They put some new updates in the game, new players, returning players, right? But when it kept going down and down and down, this was awful. But it should also be said that there's a ton of context here because Destiny 2's population doesn't just exist in a vacuum. I mean, there are players that, every player plays other games, right? And this was during the heyday of Fortnite. Not that Destiny 2 and Fortnite are necessarily rivals, but Fortnite's success, if you were around at that time, you know, Fortnite was just blowing up to a point where you could not ignore it. Like, even if you didn't play the game, you paid attention to what was happening in that game. You probably have heard of Ninja or Tfue, Cypher PK maybe. These names are like iconic at this point because these guys have accumulated like hundreds of millions or billions of views across the internet from Fortnite. Fortnite was popping off, and obviously it could at least in part be due to, or at least in part have contributed to the decline of Destiny 2. Obviously, it had many other problems that it needed to fix, and it did. But there's just, what I'm getting at is there's more context that it is important to incorporate when you're trying to interpret data like this. The quote then goes on to say, so this graph shows the trend of our weekly active users. And at the rate we were shedding players, we did the math, and if this continued for 5 more weeks, our entire player population would be gone. We were seriously 1 month away from having to just close up shop on Destiny 2 altogether. So, like I said, that was late February of 2018. Now, could Destiny 2 be in a similar predicament to that, considering we are at as low of numbers now as we were then? Possibly, I guess, but probably unlikely. I mean, we do know that Renegades is around the corner, and it has piqued the interest of a lot of Destiny 2 players, and maybe even those that have never played Destiny 2, perhaps. Bungie clearly is going to put in a ton of marketing to put Renegades in front of everyone's eyes, to give everyone a chance to log into Destiny 2 and give it a try. Hopefully it brings in a ton of new players. Hopefully it brings in a ton of relapse players, people that have left and been playing Borderlands 4, you know, get back over here, Borderlands 4 players, all right? People that left are playing Warframe, all right? It's time to come back over here, time to log into some Renegades, hopefully. That's at least the goal from Bungie, right? But it's crazy to think about that this low point was like so bad that Bungie was worried that it was going to keep going down to 0. Like I've never even thought about this as being like an option. I'm like, oh, like there'll always be people playing Destiny. Like if you went to Destiny 1 right now, it's not on Steam charts or anything, but if you went to Destiny 1 right now, there's still people in the tower, right? There may not be very many people. I mean, there might be, I don't know. I'd have to just make up some random number, like 10,000 people playing Destiny 1. But there's definitely some people, because every time I load into that game, there's people over there playing. But Bungie was of the opinion that, you know, this was going to lead to 0. And even if it doesn't lead to like literally 0, right? There's a certain point where it gets so low that when you have all of these devs, like at this period of time, 1,500 devs, when you have all of these devs that you're paying like really expensive salaries to, like the average Bungie salary is like $100,000 a year, you do the ROI, right? And it comes back red. Like you are going in the negative. You are losing money every month. You're burning money, probably, right? I don't know Bungie's finances. There's no, you know, Bungie finance report website yet. So we can't, you know the exact details, but the best knowledge that we have is that when Bungie looked at this, they said, oh shit, in a month, we're done. The point being, if Destiny 2 was about to close after that free fall in Curse of Osiris, what does that mean for the current state of the game, which is now even below that? A caveat, however, is that Bungie was about double the size of what it is now back then, with far fewer people working on other projects like Marathon, if any. Plus, they would soon get support studios boosting development on top of that via Activision. Now, Destiny has maybe a half or a third of what they had back then, and if anything, Sony is taking devs away from them rather than giving them more support, but costs are lower at least. Now, this is a very interesting thing, and you could interpret this in 2 wildly different ways, and I'll leave you to decide what you think of this. So the first way is to look at things positively and say, okay, well, the population was this low, but there was twice as many dev salaries they had to pay, which means that that's why they were so deep in the red and why they were like all doom and gloom themselves. Like Bungie themselves was like, yeah, it's almost over. We're 5 weeks away from shutting the doors. But then what they did is they took that massive dev team of 1,500 people and they started to work on Warmind and Forsaken, and they saved the game, right? Like they literally saved the game because of that massive dev team. So you could choose to believe it's positive that because the population is here, and because the population is here is the same, but we have half as many devs, they're not nearly as in the red. Like that's like looking at the glass half full. Now looking at the glass half empty, though, is that when Bungie was here, they had 1,500 people they could look to and say, hey, it's time to get cooking, guys, because like we're shutting the doors and everyone is going to find a new job in a month from now. So all those 1,500 employees at this point in time got to cooking and made Warmind and Forsaken, Whereas over here, if Bungie looks at everyone and says, hey guys, the doors are going to be shut in a month from now unless you get to cooking, well, now you're looking at half as many devs. You're looking at half as many people that were required to make Warmind and Forsaken. So are you expecting the same outcome then? Are you expecting that Bungie's going to look at everyone in the studio the same way they did at Curse of Osiris and say, let's get to cooking, let's make Forsaken 2.0? And if you are thinking that that's what they're assuming they can do, how are they going to pull that off with half as many employees? That's looking at the glass half empty. You can choose to decide how you want to interpret this information. I'm leaving my opinions out of it here, okay? I'll let you decide in the comments down below. That's the only silver lining I can find, however. Destiny 2 is 2 months away, and no doubt several more months of all-time lows from the launch of its Star Wars-based expansion, Renegades. Even if it's good, the current state of the game would suggest to me that I really don't think it's going to beat Edge of Fate's numbers, which were already a third of Final Shape's numbers. Then after that, another 6 months of relatively little content. That may be the ultimate effing terrifying moment this time around. So how well will Renegades deliver is really the big question here. And is the current population of Destiny 2 sustainable with Bungie's current dev team? This is something that I theorized actually at the launch of Edge of Fate once we saw how bad it was. Believe it or not, I wasn't all doom and gloom at the launch of Edge of Fate. I kind of thought that Bungie had maybe a strategy of longevity. And the reason why is because with these annual launches on the population report you can see here, it starts off a ton at the start, and then it's 12 months until we get to that next peak. And so if Bungie could have a peak here and 6 months later have another peak, which maybe be less, right? Because it's not going to be as big of an expansion. But if they could have 2 peaks in the middle of the year, they could average out a better player population over the course of those 12 months. Basically, the idea was to have a more consistent player base rather than this kind of like bipolar player base where it's like everyone's like, we are so back. Destiny 2 is popping its Shadowkeep. And then a few months later, it's so over, dude. What is happening? This game is dead. Game is dying. No one's playing. Cheaters everywhere. And then Beyond Lights drops. And everyone's like, we are so back. 1.8 million players. A few months later, it's over, dude. It's done. Game's dead. Like this sort of bipolar peaks and valleys is kind of tough to put up with as a Destiny 2 player and even as a content creator at times. So I thought that Bungie's strategy and Bungie's hope would be to have maybe just a more average player base. And we theorized this very early on upon launch. I was like, all right, listen, guys, it's a bad launch, okay? 100,000, less than 100,000 on launch, but maybe we have so many weekly updates in Destiny 2 that there's a reason for people to log in every week and play consistently. And maybe the population will stay at a very healthy, consistent number. I was crossing my fingers. I was like, this is going to be the future. This will actually be really fun to be a player, to always have something to do in the game. And it's also fun as a content creator because like every week there would be presumably something new to cover in regards to content. New weapons, new exotics, new armors, new missions, a raid, an epic raid, you know, all this stuff going on, right? And there is a certain degree of that, but it hasn't quite met the threshold to be interpreted as like, Destiny 2 is thriving. Destiny 2 is killing it. Destiny 2 is doing good. It's just the graph is just, it started off low and it's just getting lower and lower and lower and lower. And now, unfortunately, with the popularity report, we know that we're at like Curse of Osiris levels of low. And I wish I could spin this into a positive in some way and be like, yeah, don't worry, guys. Renegades is going to save the game. It's going to be a golden era. The future is going to be so bright. But unfortunately, all we know about right now is that Renegades will probably deliver a decent amount of content and entertainment, and it will keep us interested for at least a few weeks, I hope. We don't know what's beyond that, right? And that's why I really wish that Bungie would drop a State of the Game article. I think that they could silence a lot of the negativity and hostility if they gave us like a big plan for the future. I referenced this in a recent video talking about the roadmap they said they were going to release. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that roadmap is exciting and fun to, you know, see what the future is like, right? Like maybe the roadmap goes many years in the future like this, right? This was awesome. For me, this was like peak for the future of Destiny. We were announced Beyond Light, we were announced the Witch Queen, and we were announced Lightfall. So we knew that there was like a lot coming for Destiny 2. There was going to be a lot of narrative, a lot of content. The game had a big future, at least 3 years into the future, right? And obviously none of this panned out, right? Like obviously you had the pandemic drop, we had Witch Queen get delayed, we had Lightfall get delayed, and Lightfall ended up not even looking anything like this. It was completely different and ended up being kind of a flop in a lot of ways. But even Lightfall's flop, right? Like when you look at Lightfall's lowest points, it's at like the 500,000 player range, right? And honestly, where we're at right now with Edge of Fate, we would kill to have 500,000 players. We would love to have 500,000 players. We're cooking with less than 300,000, 280,000 at the time of recording this video. But let me know what you think about this situation down in the comment section below. How do you feel about Paul Tassi's article here and the release of Popularity Report? I'll be reading your comments down below as always, and I'll see you in the next one. So thanks for watching. Later.